Hello, it's Mr. Brown. This podcast today is for the CNT140 cabling class. I'm going to do this podcast in two pieces, but this podcast is setting up your certification meter for doing your cable certification, and then I'll scan my run and save the results. The next podcast, I'll show you how to download, interpret, and print out your results for a lab submission. So let's get started. Here is our Landtech cable meter that, as you see, it is actually a certifier. Trying to make it a certifier. So this is the meter it's actually capable of testing the performance on our installed cabling and making sure everything is up to spec, that it will carry the bandwidth we want it to carry. As we talked in class, this is kind of like going to the garage and having your car inspected and then putting a sticker on saying, yep, it's safe for another year. This will scan the cable run. When we're done, we'll have a printout that says, yes, this cable run will support gigabit or 10 gig or whatever it happens to be. All right, first thing we need to do, we powered up the meter. Power buttons are down in the bottom right corner. We power up the meter. Then we need to set up our meter for the type of cable run we're going to do. So I'm going to select our bottom button down here for cables. I'll select that, and then I will highlight the test we're going to do, which will be the twisted pair basic channel test. Highlight that, and then I select my option here on the type of cable we're going to do. Category 5E UTP, that's the cabling we installed in our lab. So now our meter is set up to be using the right test results, if you will, for the cabling we're installing. I'll now go up and click the option where we do field calibration. I'll highlight that, and the meter is going to start showing me, hey, this is what you need to do. Well, what I've done is I've taken my two patch cables for the meter here. I have one laying over here on the right by the remote. This is the remote end. And I have one laying over here by the other end, the test meter end, if you will. And I'm just going to hook them up. It's telling me, it's saying, hey, take the cord, kind of lay it on the right hand, if you will, hook it between the two meters and run the test. So I'm going to do that. I'll take my cord, I'll hook it between the two meters, like it tells me, and then I'll push the test on it. And now it's going to learn everything there is to know about this particular patch cable. Start. So that way, as it's calibrating, it can basically not count this in the cable run. The distance, the performance, all that kind of good stuff. It's learning everything it can about this cable. So it's running through that test. Once it's done, it's going to tell me to set that cable aside, and I'll use the one I have laying on my left over here. And it's saying that now. It says, okay, now that you've done that right-hand one, now do, or the remote, if you will, now do the other patch cable. So I'm going to set that one off to my right. I'll grab the cable on my left and do the exact same thing. There we go. Connect it up to the meter. Connect it up to the meter. Bear with my hand being in the way there. There we are. Okay, and we're back. And I'll run that test now. So now it's learning everything it needs to know about this patch cable. Once it's learned that, it will do one more test where we plug the cables in, one cable in the meter end and one cable in the remote end, and do one last test with them. So it learns everything there is to know about these patch cables for the meter. Okay, so now it's saying, hey, the cable on the left, leave it in the meter, cable on the right, put it in the remote, and you're going to test them while the cables are open, if you will. And once we do this, we're going to leave these cables here and we're not going to move them around. So I'll start on this one, I'll press auto test on this one, and it's going to learn these patch cables individually. And at this point, I leave those cables in the meter. I don't unplug them. If I start moving them around and I go to test with my meter, it's going to go, I don't know these cables. Okay? We should see calibration complete. We should see pass over here, and we're good to go. So I'll do an escape over here. I am ready at this point to hook up to my cable run and test it. So I'm going to pull my cable run out. If you remember in one of the last labs we did, I took my patch panel here and I terminated cable run 27. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug my meter into port 27, and then here was my outlet that I had done in the previous lab, and I'll plug the remote into my outlet over here. So I'll plug the remote into my outlet. I'm then going to plug the meter into port 27, and I will scan my cable run. So at this point, my meter is already set up that when I do auto test, it does all the appropriate tests that I need to certify the run. So I'll press auto test. It's going to take it a few seconds. It's going to run through all the tests necessary: length, wire map, attenuation, crosstalk, all those sorts of things to say, yes, all the performance specs on this cable run are good. So we're going to let that run. Saving test, and it looks like we have a pass. We have a green check mark up here, and it gives me some data on this. Well, what I want to do is I want to rename this thing so I can save it. So I'll rename the cable run, and I'll just delete here. And this says CNT140 port. Okay. Well, I'm going to put in 27 and just treat this like the old cell phones where the more you press the button, it changes the number to letter and everything else. Oops. We'll do delete, backspace delete, backspace delete. Okay. So now I will do this to, oops, come around again. One more time. Here we go. There we go. CNT203 port 27. What I can do at that point is just do an enter to save that. Saves my test result. Now my results are saved, and I could hook up to the next cable run. Port 28, scan that, save it. Port 29, scan and save. This meter is actually set up that if I were to do a whole room, if I do them in chronological order, it'll start incrementing, and all I need to do every time is save, 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 and it'll save my 30 or 40 test results. My next podcast, I'll hook this up to our desktop and download the results and show you how to do that. So I'll be back in a minute with another podcast.